I want us to spend a little bit of time talking about our order of operations standards for 5th grade. Now, in our district, we use PEMDAS, not GEMDAS with a G for groupings instead of P for parentheses. And you may say, why? It's interchangeable. It is interchangeable. They represent the same thing. We use P for parentheses instead of G for groupings because that's what we do vertically as we move into middle school, and we want to make sure we are vertically supporting what students are going to do in 6th grade. So in 5th grade, when we are introducing this, if you are using the mnemonic PEMDAS, I need you to use PEMDAS instead of GEMDAS. So we're not using GEM, we're using PEM. So let's talk about what students learn in 5th grade for order of operations. So first of all, our supporting standard 5.4e, this is where students have to describe what parentheses and brackets mean in a numerical expression. So the meaning of parentheses and brackets in an expression. Now, what does that sound like? Well, that sounds like what do the parentheses indicate in this expression? What do the brackets indicate in this expression? And so it's things like the numbers in the parentheses would be solved first before moving to whatever the other numbers are in the expression. So we want kids to understand that's the foundation. The parentheses and the brackets have to be done first. And inside those parentheses and brackets, we still follow the rules of PEMDAS. So if there are multiple layers, like you'll see in our next standard, we can have up to 2 sets of parentheses and 4 brackets. If there's multiple layers, we have to start from the inside and follow PEMDAS within that set of parentheses before we move outside the parentheses or outside the brackets. So that's 5.4e. Now 5.4f is where we really get down to simplifying numerical expressions by following the order of operations or PEMDAS. So in 5th grade, no exponents. So please don't teach problems with exponents. Please don't show problems with exponents. This is not part of our standard. That's the 6th grade standard. So there are no exponents, and we don't want you to extend and teach that to students. We want students to stay on their 5th grade standards. 6th grade teachers will introduce that, and they want to be able to introduce that in a way that helps build the student's learning as a 6th grader, so not as a 5th grader. And then we also know that we have up to 2 levels of groupings. Now, does every problem have to have 2 levels of groupings? No, it says up to 2 levels, which could mean 0 groupings, or it could mean 1 set of grouping or 1 set of parentheses, or 2. So we could have that looking several different ways. So we're going to solve a couple of problems together, and I want to talk about things that are common areas for students to struggle. So if I showed students this problem, the first thing students forget is that when there's a number with no sign right next to the parentheses, it means multiply. They forget that every time, and they would want to write 67 as the answer to this, so, or 36. So you want to make sure we're teaching that if there's no sign between a number and a parentheses, it means I'm going to multiply. Now, so we're going to start solving this. We would have 6, and we're going to solve one part at a time. We aren't going to let kids go ahead and solve this. We're going to solve one part at a time. Now, something that kids tend to mess up next is if I had 42 minus 3 times 2 plus 4. They want to do 42 minus 3 instead of 3 times 6. So they forget that they have to keep following the order of operations. So we're going to keep this. We're going to multiply after we've done those parentheses. So then this would be 42. Yes, I'm going to make kids keep writing this out. Why? Why make them do that? Because I want them to learn that solving an order of operations problem is about doing one step at a time. One step at a time. And I want to be able to see what that one step is that they did in that layer of solving the problem so that I can figure out where their mistake is. So have them underline the step that they are solving and then solve only that and write the rest of the problem down. Then underline the next part of the problem, solve only that, write the rest of the problem down. Underline what they're going to solve only that, write the rest of the problem down. I always taught my students that this is like a funnel, and it funnels you right down to the answer at the end. You're simplifying it. So I have another problem for us to look at that has a little bit different layer. Notice this is 2 levels of groupings. So this was okay. It's okay for 2 levels of groupings because our standard says up to 2 levels of groupings. So that fits our standard just fine. So here, is another type of problem. There are 2 levels of groupings. Here's one grouping, here's another grouping. So we have 2 levels of groupings. Remember, I'm going to underline the part that I'm solving, write the rest of the problem down. Then I need to solve 12 times 45. And just like we've talked about in the prior unit, I can let kids use the strategy that they are comfortable with. I don't have to force them to use my strategy. I'm going to keep modeling the standard algorithm. I'm not going to model their strategy after I've taught it, but I'm going to keep modeling the standard algorithm, and I'm going to try to move students toward that standard algorithm. So again, this funnels right down to an answer, and they've simplified the problem. So when we're introducing this in this particular unit, we are only working with whole numbers for multiplication and division. With addition, we can work with decimals because we've taught that already. So this standard leads to all of our operations TEKS. So right now, I can add and subtract whole and decimals because I've already taught that. But as I introduce adding and subtracting with fractions, then I need to do PEMDAS with adding and subtracting fractions. So that's going to come later, where we're also going to do whole, decimal, and fractions once we've introduced it. Right now, I'm only going to multiply and divide with whole numbers in PEMDAS. Later, after I've introduced it, I can do decimals that fit the TEK. After I've introduced fractions, as long as the work that I would do in this problem fits the TEK, then it fits within our order of operations standard as well. So our order of operations standard is not limited to whole numbers. We choose in our district to do this one section at a time. So we introduce it early in the year so that students can do whole numbers and decimals and with adding and subtracting, and only whole numbers with multiplying and dividing while they're learning the process. Then I'm going to continue to spiral this all year, and as I add a new type of positive rational number that fits within my multiplication and division standard or my addition and subtraction standard, then I can put that in with PEMDAS problems as well. So for now, this is all we've taught, so that's all we're going to solve PEMDAS problems with. As we learn adding and subtracting with fractions at a 5th grade level, we're going to bring that into PEMDAS problems as well. As we learn multiplying and dividing with decimals, our 5th grade TEKS for that, we can bring those 5th grade TEKS into PEMDAS as well. Same for fractions.